Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program from our studios in Jerusalem. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Blackham. I'm with my wife, Nathalie Blackham, with a program that looks at things that you don't normally see in the news. And we also look at the Hebraic roots. Now, as we've come in the studio today, it's Purim in Israel. And it's also the ceasefire. We have the two things going on. As far as I'm aware, it's the ceasefire still going on. And of course, the hostage release project scheme, or whatever it is. Hostages are being released, and also, unfortunately, terrorists are being released as well. We might be able to get onto a bit about that during the program. And this is all happening at Purim, and we're coming not
2025.
just right, and we're not just in coming into Purim, but we've also got Passover, which is fast on its heels. So it's a busy season in Israel now. One of the things that's happening because of the ceasefire is having a number of effects. One is that evacuated residents of Israel's north are required. It's not optional. I think even the hotels are removing them. Required to return home, but many find there's nowhere to go. Why is that? Because of the missile attacks from Lebanon into Israel, destroying people's homes in the north. While some kibbutzim in North Israel are seeing residents return home, other communities are still trying to deal with the war's damage and hope that the state will help them rebuild in time for the next school year. And that's the end of this year, the September-October area. Israel's National Digital Agency's figures show that 29,000 residents returned to their home as of March 7th, 2025. 42% of all northern residents who were evacuated during the war. The government administration in charge of evacuees says that 10,000 out of 67,500 have returned home since March 1st, the homecoming date set by the Israeli government. For many of Metula is in the north. It's a town or a city, I believe. For many of Metula's residents, government grants are far from being a sufficient solution. There are some government grants that have been given for the northern evacuees. According to the local council, over 400 out of 650 houses in the town were damaged. That's quite a lot, really. That's over half. Further damage was caused to public facilities, schools, roads, pavements, street lighting, infrastructure. They all require extensive renovations. One of the things that perplexes me about this story is why they haven't done this before. Whilst the residents couldn't return home, they could have started to do renovations on the town. Maybe because they were still under missile attack. Some of which have only begun in recent days. Now, the alleged reason isn't the ceasefire, isn't the war, but bureaucracy, Nathalie. That's the paperwork. The community of Avivim saw only 7 families return out of 120, according to the Moshav's committee. Out of 102 houses in the Moshav, 42 are uninhabitable. They're not just been damaged, but they're uninhabitable due to the damage, says Shimon Bitton, head of the committee. The ceasefire started 3 months ago, and we still haven't finished the appraisal process with the property tax authorities. It seems that there's 2 issues here. One is the rebuilding. Some of it, because of terrorism, is government funded. But they have to, there's also the property tax situation, who seem to be handling the matter. In Manara, about 70% of the houses, apartments and public facilities of the kibbutz were damaged by rocket fire from Lebanon and Israeli military activities in the region. So the people are trying to go home, but it's very difficult if your house has been severely damaged. And when I say that, I mean, the roof has gone, electricity doesn't work, water's damaged, all the facilities of the house are damaged. It's it's very close, Natalie, to being a rebuild situation. Now, the other thing I mentioned, because of the ceasefire, is the hostages are being released, which is great news, but we're also having terrorists released. And when I say terrorists, these are people who have been responsible for the murder of Israeli citizens. It says half of all terrorists serving life sentences. You don't get life sentence if you're just carrying a piece of paper telling them where to do the attack. These are people who are directly involved, have been released in the first stage of the hostage deal. During the first phase of the hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, 274 terrorists serving life sentences were released. About 300 terrorists serving life sentences remain in prison. So in other words, nearly over half of the terrorist population serving life sentences, Natalie, have been released. And the problem is that they're released into Judea and Samaria, and it's very unlikely that they're going to get jobs in the shops or something. It's very likely that they will return to their activities, for which they're paid, by the way. It's not a voluntary scheme, terrorism. They are paid to carry out violent attacks. Amar al-Zaban. Oh, by the way, it's also Ramadan as we speak. So, which is traditionally isn't a good time, and there are usually terror attacks during Ramadan. Amar al-Zaban, one of the leaders of the Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, who is responsible for a long series of attacks in which 27 Israeli citizens were murdered, was sentenced to 27 life sentences in prison, and he's just one of the terrorists being released. And as I say, unfortunately, they are being released into the area around Jerusalem and around the east side of Israel.
Yeah, not so far from here.
No. In fact, we've had terrorists released not far from where we're filming today into the areas around here. And by the way, we have had terror attacks in our community where we're filming today. We had a serious terror attack where at least 3 Israelis were murdered, I believe, in a terror attack, and 1 severely injured. Mm-hmm. We also had another terror attack in which a security guard was injured in a knife attack at the border. And, this is just where we live. I suffered that. So, the other issue that we've got at the moment, this is something globally, by the way, so I know it's not just in Israel, but if it's, we're Israel first. So if it's happening in Israel, then it's going to affect everybody. Nearly three quarters of Israelis fear they cannot handle the employment crisis. We've had an employment crisis in the country, particularly with the war, which has meant that many companies have had their staff go to America to work, or they've had to close offices here. And I've talked about that before on the Israel First TV program. 70% of the Israeli public, that's a very high percentage, believe they will not be able to cope with an employment crisis. The non-profit organization Bet Azimi revealed in its Employment Resilience Index. The study also found that 74% of young people under 34 are in a constant state of searching for a new job, even when they are employed. What you might not be aware of are there are organizations like LinkedIn and other organizations you can join who kind of look for jobs for you all the time. I think this is very stressful, really, to be having to look for jobs all the time. I think it doesn't give stability either to the person involved or to the company. I don't think it's a good thing. I know that when I was last working in insurance, it was something these short-term contracts were starting to appear, but I don't think they're a good thing at all. In the study, it says there's a lack of security and a sense of dissatisfaction. The overall resilience of Israelis obtained a score of 5.7 out of 10, which Bet Azim says is very low and reflects the complex challenges facing the future employment market. Furthermore, 59% of the public believe that they will struggle to find work at the same level as the job they're currently working in. So people are not just having a struggle to find work, people who are working are concerned that if their job goes, they won't be able to find another one. 74% of respondents see no possibility of promotion or change in their workplace. Just 15% believe state systems would help them during an employment crisis. This is a very low and disturbing figure, the study says, reflecting a deep fracture in the public sense of security in the public system. People do not trust government, which is perceived as irrelevant or is incapable of providing a real and rapid response. Liat Brosh, CEO of BATME, said, "The last decade has been characterized by profound changes that have dramatically affected the labour market in Israel and around the world. Global trends such as globalization and accelerated digitalization are changing the rules of the game and requiring both employees and employers to adapt quickly. Technological developments such as artificial intelligence and changes in employment models are changing many professions and leading to a constant demand for learning new skills." Brosh also raised the impact of the security crises on employment, which has led to an increase in the number of unemployed people. In other words, because of the war, many companies in Israel have had to reduce their staff size and make redundancies. And the problem is, if you make redundant and everybody's getting made redundant, makes it more difficult to find other jobs. So it's one of the things I know that's happening across the world, but it's particularly felt here in Israel. Now, Nathalie, it's Purim and you've got things to share with us. This is, of course, a joyful feast.
Yes, totally true. And it's amazing because we don't really speak about Purim in the Christian world, but this is so important. It's a beautiful book. It's a short book. And this was happening in Persia, which is Iran now. And it was in the capital, which was called Shushan. And there was one man, Mordecai, and he had a niece, Esther. And her name in Hebrew was Hadassah. Esther comes from being hidden, which is the old story because Ashar-Verosh, which is success in usually in our Bible, it's a long name in Hebrew. Didn't know he married her, but he didn't know where. It was a mysterious origin. Yeah, I mean, when you read it, you can do a great film about it. But it would be nice. I know there is films who've been done about it, but it's been a bit romanced, and it would be important to have more the real story, because when you think she had to put her life really at stake, but she was doing that because all the Jews were going to be annihilated. Read the book because it's very important. I just want to pick up one story on it because it's very important. The name of God is not written at all in that scroll, which is interesting. But sometimes it's written the king, and sometimes it's written the king Ahasuerus or Xerxes. Okay, so when it's written the king Xerxes,
Success.
Yeah, Ahasuerus. It is, we know that it's him, but when it's written only the king, it's kind of a way to say this is the king of creation of the universe that he's speaking about. So you can, when you read the book, it's very interesting to know that, because you can see when it was written in with double way of reading it, different level. So this is very interesting. So, and also something which is very interesting in the chapter 9, so it's kind of at the end of the story, you see that the 10th son of Haman was the naughty one, very naughty. And when you go in the synagogue here in Israel or all around the world, every time that they say the name Haman, they use a dragon and they make it going around and make it a racket because we don't want to hear his name. But when we say Mordecai, we say, wow. And, you know, he's a very lively scroll who is read twice, once in the night of the, because the day starts in the evening here and finish at the end of when the next sunset. And so they read it twice. They read it during the night, the first night, and after they read it during the day. But okay, we go back to the story. So the 10 sons of Haman, not only him has been hanged, but also the 10 sons, but it's written for them, they were killed, okay? And then it's written, Esther is saying to the king, and it's written only the king, not King Ahasuerus, but it's written the king. And he said, tomorrow, if it is fit to the king, let the son of Haman be hanged. But they were already killed. So this is very strange. Now you have to think that the tomorrow is a tomorrow of almost, I mean, like 1,500 about, or I don't know exactly, but like a long time. And it was 1948. Why am I saying that? Because in 1948, there was in Nuremberg, you know, the trial of some people who were like Nazis or done some work, some killing a lot of Jews in Nazi Germany, and they were put in trial, and they wanted to execute 11 of them, okay? And they say, we're not going to execute them. Usually it will be like with the electrical chair or in another way. They say, no, we are going to hang them, which was totally unusual, okay? And there was 11, but when Goering heard that, he committed suicide few hours after the sentence, and so there was only 10, and 10 were hanged. And it goes into the story of Queen Esther, and you have the name of all the 10 sons of Haman is written in the Torah. And there is something very special because there is 3 little letters who are written, usually the letters are always the same shape and always the same size, but in the name of this 10 son of Haman, there is 3 letters who are written small. And when you look at the letter is Tav, the last letter of the alphabet, and the Shin and the Zayin. And that, because in Hebrew, when you look at the date, this is the date of 1946. And so it's just amazing. It's like in the Torah scroll, who was written many centuries before, you have this prophetic clue put in the 10 names of the son of Haman with the exact date. 1946 will be the trial of these 10 men. And even more than that, there was, let me find his name, Julius Streicher. When he was hanged, nobody said Hi Hitler at all when they were hanged, but listen to what he was saying. He said, I'm going now, when he was going to the gallows, he said, now I go to God. And then this was recorded, okay? We have it recorded on the radio. And then he said, Purim Festival 1946 goes now to God. He knew the code. This was just unbelievable. He knew that it was Purim time, and he was hanged. And so it's to show you how precious, how precise the Torah is, and like the history of humanity is written there. Now, one more thing that I wanted to say, Haman was a descendant of Amalek. We spoke a few times about Amalek, and you can go back into, maybe we will do again something about that, because it's very important. Amalek is written, has his hands on the throne of God because he doesn't want God. And And he's fighting specifically the Jews because they know that they're the people of God. And if there is no more Jews on the earth, it's like, that's it. He has the place, and is like almost taking the name of God also out of the earth. And so Amalek has to be annihilated, and it's written he will be at the end of time. So Purim is the story of annihilating Amalek. Is not finished, but you can see even with these 10 men who were hanged, is like, that's it. It's like the time of Amalek is going to be finished, and the kingdom of God will be able to come on earth. So it's just amazing to see so precise this, how precise is the Torah. And how important is this feast? Now, when you come, so there is a fast just before Purim, which is called the fast of Esther. So from the night to night, nobody fasts, nobody eats and nobody drinks. And it's really to pray to God, saying, okay, we need you, and we need to see this Amalek to be finished, which is now we could see that Hamas is very much has the face of Amalek, who just want to destroy the Jewish people for destroying the Jewish people. And during this fast, we can pray especially for all the body of all the hostages who are dead to come back here and to have a proper burial. And we pray also, obviously, for all the one who are still alive, who are still in Gaza, and we want to finish to see the release of every one of them. And now, for the fast of Easter, is a very specific time, and very strong time, spiritually, to be able to pray for all of that, and to pray for our Yeshua, our salvation. We need salvation for different levels, for different things, and there's time for us to pray for these things.
Now, one of the things that happens at Purim, Nathalie, is that everybody, well, I say everybody, a lot of people will wear costumes and masks. They will have a mask or a costume. For example, our grandchildren were dressed in costumes, and one of my grandsons was dressed as Mario from the computer games. Now, why is it, Nathalie, the people want to know, why is it that people dress in costumes? And so it's very jolly on the streets of Jerusalem. It's very colourful. If you come it's a very good time to come and visit. It's a very colourful time, joyful time. So why is it that they wear costumes and have masks?
Because again, everything in the world, there is so much illusions. We think that is going that way, and in the end is going to be returned. All the Jewish people should have been annihilated at that time. And Esther going to see the king and telling him, and she's done some very specific things, asking him to come for a special meal, and Haman was invited. So he was so happy, so like, wow, and suddenly everything turned around, and he was hanged a few days after. So this is, the Purim is like you disguise yourself. You have costume to show that there is illusion. They drink also, and you have to make sure that you are like tipsy and you can't remember what is the difference between Haman and Mordecai. They are giving some presents to each other. In the book is written, many people were fearing the Jews after and saying, well, we need to come, we need to be like them. We need to have a counter with this God who is saving them. So it's just amazing. And it is in Israel, it's just beautiful to see that and to say, okay, look, they are trying to kill us. God is defeating them. And now we drink and we eat and we rejoice together. And this is the life of Israel.
But it's an amazing festival, because we have Purim, where we have costumes and masks, and as Nathalie said, that people drink until they can't recognize the difference between Mordecai and Haman. Then we have Yom Kippur and Passover, and then, which is a massive feast. It's probably
No, Yom Kippur is at the end of
sorry. We have Passover,
yeah.
which is a massive feast because it's. They say if you never go to a synagogue, you go to synagogue at least once a year, which is Pesach. They'll go for Passover, so it's a very important feast, and we're coming into that season of that. And as I say, we're just in Purim at the moment.
The freedom of being not slave anymore. This was the big thing that God was doing, and that is going to do it for the final redemption of all humanity, that they will have no more Amalek, no more Hamas, no more violence, no more war, and it will be like heaven on earth, which is like, you know.
And if you want to get more of the news that we're doing from Israel, then you can go to our website, to the media page, and the Israel news is there for you to see. You can also subscribe to the newsletter, which Nathalie does every week, and you can get that from the website as well. Thank you so much to everybody who's supporting us. We very much appreciate you, and send very grateful thanks, because it's because of your support that we can do the program and let others know what's happening behind the scenes in Israel. Don't forget, the website has a lot more information than just the news. There is, you can also donate and support us.
And the book.
And it has Nathalie's book on the Hebrew language. You can get hold of that via the website. So please have a look at that. And don't forget, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.